Story time. I recently turned 29 years old, which means it's been nearly 10 years since my high school best friend invited me to a meeting for his multi-level marketing scheme that he had recently joined. If you're at all familiar with me or my channel, you'll know that this led to the end of that friendship. And fast forward a few years later to 2019, and I began exposing these multi-level marketing schemes on my YouTube channel. Since then, it's been quite an eventful journey, quite the adventure. You know, the lawsuits, the harassment, the leaving Canada and bouncing from one third world country to the next. Aside from a TikTok that went semi-viral in 2023, giving the overview of the story with my former best friend, I've never actually sat down and told the full story, and many people have requested that I do it, so I thought, why not today, nearly 10 years in the future, finally sit down and tell you all the story. I'm gonna tell you what happened before, during, and after the meeting, as well as show you some of the angry Facebook messages I got in 2019 when I released my first video on World Financial Group. It's really hot where I'm sitting. I'm in direct sunlight, so let's move to a more shaded area and I'll tell you everything there. That's better. I remember it like it was yesterday, a day that would forever change the trajectory of my life, and I didn't even know it. My former best friend and I met during the first week of high school. We became fast friends. He was always somebody that was really smart, in my opinion, especially when it came to math. He was good with numbers. After we graduated in 2014, there was some distance, which is normal after you graduate high school. You're no longer going to the same building and spending hours a day there 5 times a week. So I think this is pretty normal in terms of, you know, losing touch with people after you graduate, but we still stayed in touch, we still hung out. I remember one time we went to go watch a movie or something, and he got in the car and he's eating this like granola bar, and I didn't recognize it at the time, but this was an Amway granola bar. You know, people in Amway, they always buy the, they Amwayify their lives. They use the Amway cleaning products, they use the Amway water, the Amway granola bars, they just become a product of the product, as they like to say in MLM sometimes. And I remember while we're hanging out, he had mentioned a couple times my business. And he didn't specifically say Amway, he didn't invite me to a meeting, but I realized that in hindsight, he was doing something that they call dropping the message in Amway. He was dropping the message on me, planting the seed, sort of trying to create this conversation about success and business and entrepreneurship, pseudo-entrepreneurship. And I was not privy to it at the time at all. I was just sort of like, yeah, you know, right on, like, sounds good. Again, he was somebody who I thought was really smart, so it didn't strike me as surprising or out of place necessarily when a guy who I considered to be very smart was talking to me about business fresh out of high school. Some time had gone by, and we still stayed in touch, but I hadn't actually hung out with him in several months. And now it's 2015. I'm in my first year of university in Edmonton, and he was working for a new business, or rather he had a new business. I remember him inviting me to this office, and he was saying, you should really come check it out. Again, this is somebody who was my best friend for the last 4 years. I trusted him implicitly. He was somebody who I thought was really smart. So when he tells me that he has a business, or better yet, a business opportunity, I thought, of course, I'll check it out. So I drive to this very nondescript, sort of brutalist architecture looking building in a, industrial section of the city. It wasn't necessarily like a commercial space where there's a bunch of businesses, and it wasn't a residential area either. It's like one of these spaces, I'll put up some pictures if I can find something that sort of conveys what I'm talking about. I walk in, there's a guy in a suit, older gentleman, shakes my hand, he's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, good, thanks. He goes, are you an agent? Now, I didn't realize I was walking into the Men in Black secret facility, but here we are. I said, no, I'm not. I'm here. My friend invited me. Da, da, da. He's like, oh, okay, you're here for the meeting. Okay, well, go right this way. I thought, wow, this place is prim and proper. They're super, super professional here. I see my friend. He's like, yeah, this is gonna be good. Go have a seat, whatever. So I go sit down, and I want to say the audience was actually quite small considering some of the MLM opportunity meetings I've been to since. I want to say there was like 20, 30 people there. I remember distinctly there was a Filipino husband and wife in the front row. There was like an older, much older white guy by himself. There was me. I don't exactly remember the full gamut of people there. And around the circumference of the room, the outer edge, there was all the WFG agents, people around my age, 19 years old, standing there in their suits, of course, including my friend. And they started out so typically, so obviously, again, in hindsight, all this stuff is so ridiculous and so see-through. But they started out with like the main guy going up to the front of the room and being like, this guy earned 20,000 points or whatever it was. This guy earned $5,000. And everybody's clapping and cheering. If you've seen my first video on World Financial Group, it was exactly like this. People clapping and cheering and celebrating success, strangely, on a random Tuesday evening, you know? So then they had the first speaker go up. This guy goes up, I was born on a dirt floor in Mexico, and I came to this country with $10 in my pocket, and now I drive a blah, blah, blah. It was like, oh my God. It was so over the top and so ridiculous. Like, my BS detector was just going off. And I've said this before in some live stream or video, but like, you know, I'm Lebanese, and growing up, I had like relatives and I saw like people in the community, family, friends, whatever, who sort of had this like, I don't know, just hustler, not necessarily scammer, but like hustler way about them where, you know, they always know what they're talking about. They're always the authority on every subject. You know, you could ask a Lebanese guy, do you know how to build a car? Of course, I can build anything. Anything you bring me, I build it. Like, there's just this thing. It's like this, I don't know how you would, like radical independence where they have to know everything. They're always like way confident. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like this. I feel like there's other cultures that share this thing too. I'm just speaking about my own experience in the community that I experienced growing up. So when this guy's talking about, oh yeah, my Lamborghini, my Mercedes, and I grew up on, like, bro, a dirt floor in Mexico. That was one specific example that I remember the guy saying, a dirt floor in Mexico. It's like, okay, bro. So the dirt floor in Mexico guy goes up. By the way, my best friend was Mexican. Then another guy goes up. It's a white guy this time. He says the same thing. Then the final boss comes out. I remember this guy, Cameron. He comes out, and he was a white guy as well. And he was like the most flamboyant and charismatic of all of them. It was nothing about business. It was nothing about finance. It was nothing about insurance or investments. It was all about, we take our people on trips, and this guy came from this, and now he has this, and I came from this, and now I have this. It was all lifestyle. And as I said, my BS detector was going off, that to the point that at some moment during one of the presentations, I remember I took out my phone and I searched World Financial Group on Google. And I just saw, this is a scam, this is a pyramid scheme. They, you know, and I was like, oh no. I remember literally going like, oh, they got my boy. That's what I was thinking. They got my boy. When it was all said and done, my friend came up to me with another guy. And this was one of the scariest moments of my life, because how can I relay this in a way that could be relatable to people? Okay, trigger warning here I'm going to talk about addiction. If you've ever known a relative or someone in your life who's had like a serious substance addiction, I'm being careful because of YouTube, you'll know that there can be physiological responses in them, or their face might morph and change, or they might move in a certain way that's unnatural, and it sort of just gives you the creeps. It makes you shudder, it makes your skin crawl, because it's not them, you know? And what I saw from my friend was this look of like mania. Mania is the best word I would use to describe it. His eyes were like bulging out of his head. He was like wide-eyed. He's like, when are you gonna sign up? When are you gonna sign up? From somebody who I always knew to be like, you know, of sound mind and always like kept a cool head, and he was very like, you know, very relaxed, very chill guy. Seeing him come at me like that up close, so when are you gonna sign up, was like so, I knew it wasn't him. It wasn't him. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. I'm not, you know, retroactively diagnosing him 10 years later. But if I had to describe it in layperson's terms, I would say he was brainwashed. He was essentially had gone crazy. That's what he looked like. He looked crazy. And I somehow managed to get out of there without giving anybody like my credit card information and my personal info that they wanted me to give them on the paper to sign up. I remember I got home and I had read some of these like Better Business Bureau and Glassdoor reviews or whatever of World Financial Group to try to like prepare myself with what to say for when I called him and voiced my concern. And I thought at the time I was approaching this in like a pretty good way, you know? I was gonna try to be non-confrontational and just like express my concern and not make him like too defensive or put him on the back foot or say anything to like trigger him, because I could tell his mind, like he was totally bought into this thing. So I remember I called him and he was like asking me like, yeah, what'd you think of the presentation? I was like, yeah, man, it was cool, but I just want you to know, like, you know, I want you to do well, and you know, you're a smart guy, but I looked up some reviews of this company online, and there's like a bunch of stuff saying that it's like a pyramid scheme and a scam. Mind you, I didn't even know what a pyramid scheme was at the time. I didn't know anything about multi-level marketing. I didn't know anything about this. Immediately, he was like, they told me you would say that. You're just like everyone else. You don't believe in me. And it was like, there was immediately, he had like this knee-jerk reaction where he was immediately defensive, immediately like I was the enemy, you know? I was the Matrix. I was the broke-minded loser that was trying to hold him back from his potential and his dreams that they had filled his head with. And of course, you know, unfortunately in MLM, like with cults of any other kind, they'll usually tell you that anybody who isn't on board with this propaganda is a negative dream stealer who's trying to like hold you back, and you should probably cut them off. And that's exactly what happened. You know, you're just like everyone else. You don't believe in me. They told me you would say that, and boom, I was gone. I was out of there. After that phone call, I was still so confused, because between my gut feeling that my friend had been duped in some way, and that these guys telling these rags to riches stories were full of shit, as well as the reviews about the company calling it a scam that I found on Google, I still couldn't figure out why he had been so seized by this thing. And this is before I even knew about like the business model of MLM, this mathematically impossible endless chain of you recruit 5 people, they recruit 5 people, and you can only repeat that 13 times before you've exceeded the entire population of the earth. All I had to go off was like the reviews that popped up on Google and my gut feeling, and still, just from those 2 things, I knew it was bullshit. But I wanted to understand what about it had made my friend so ride or die for this thing, you know? I eventually figured it out, but it was years later, and by that time, the ship had already sailed for us rekindling the friendship. There was actually a time, I think it was 2017, maybe 2 years after that last phone call where he cut me off for not believing in him. He contacted me, and he was like, hey man, I'm not with WFG anymore, and you know, we should hang out like back in the day and this and that. And I was like, oh, okay, he's not in that thing anymore. This is, you know, this could be cool. And I remember we did hang out one time. I don't remember exactly what we did. I think we went to the mall. We did something at the mall. He was more like himself, the way I knew him before, but there was still this kind of like awkwardness, like this elephant in the room, because we didn't at all talk about World Financial Group. And like, are we not going to talk about that phone call where you said that I'm just like everyone else and I don't believe in you, and they told you I would say that and I'm like a bad friend or whatever? Like, it just felt artificial. It felt like it had been tainted by that experience, because I felt less secure in the friendship, of course, because it's like, bro, I've been your best friend. This is what's going on in my mind, you know? It's like, I've been this dude's best friend all throughout high school, you know, these formative years of our life. And these random people you'd known for a few months in 2015 had you so brainwashed that you were willing to cut off your own best friend, who was just like expressing concern over this thing that didn't sit right with him. And now 2 years later, just gonna act like it didn't happen, you know? It just wasn't right. And after that, we sort of like, I guess we were cool, you know, but we weren't like staying in touch. We weren't like hanging out. And then came that fateful day in 2019 where I released the video, Infiltrating a Pyramid Scheme. At the time, it was just called Infiltrating a Pyramid Scheme. I added the WFG later on when it became a series that I was doing where I was infiltrating several different companies. By this point, my friend should have been a multi-millionaire had he stayed with WFG, according to the stories that the guys were telling at the 2015 meeting. You know, oh, I can pay my mortgage from the beach. I could do a Zoom call by the beach if I want to. I can sit next to the pool and pay my bills if I want to. Speaking of which, let me go pay some bills by the pool right now with the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Aura protects your personal data and information. Bank of America recently suffered a data breach, and they didn't even announce it until months later. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody steals my data, I would want to know about it right away. Aura will scan the internet and let me know if they find my email, my phone number, or my social security number on the dark web or on some sketchy data broker website. If someone's trying to steal my identity, Aura will let me know if someone is using my information to try to gain access to my bank account, for example. With Aura, you can also get up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen. The Aura app also has a built-in VPN and other helpful features designed to keep you safe online, and they are offering my subscribers a 2-week free trial. Don't leave yourself vulnerable to data breaches or identity theft. Go to aura.com/alwaysmarco. I've put the link in the description below. You have absolutely nothing to lose. Get 2 weeks of Aura for free. Thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. And now back to the story. Funny thing about that video, you know, a lot of people ask me, why did you choose to make a video about that company 4 years after your experience with them? Well, when I decided I wanted to be a YouTuber in 2019, the original idea that I had for my channel was that with every video, I would join a different fringe group, not just interviewing these groups, but really immersing myself. So my first video, I was hanging out with these evangelical Christian dudes that would meet up at the mall and drink coffee and talk about Jesus. And then I did another one with a group of Viking LARPers, you know, people that would dress up like Vikings and do reenactments in the park and things like that, you know. So that was my original vision for the channel. And I had a bunch of different ideas where I was like, okay, this is my list of video ideas. The fourth idea on the list was called Join a Pyramid Scheme. And originally, I remember I talked to some guy who was with an MLM called It Works. That didn't really pan out. I couldn't really organize a time to meet. Then I did a meeting with a guy from Amway. He was like a much older man, and he was a mechanic. But we met at a Tim Hortons, and he showed me a big fold-out piece of paper with the different Amway ranks. It was you could be a ruby, then a sapphire, then you're an emerald and a diamond. At this time, I didn't have any camera or spy gear. I was just filming on my iPhone 10. And so I didn't really have a covert way of filming that. It wasn't really planned out. And after feeling oh, this might not happen, I remembered, I was like, oh, what about that company that my friend was in and that weird meeting that I went to 4 years ago for that company? And the rest is history. So I made that video, and of course the backlash from the people who were defending it was massive, just like it is with every MLM infiltration video I put out. There's always those who are defending the company, who are in it, or who, I don't know, have some weird allegiance to it that will come and bash me. You know, they never address my argument. They just attack the source. This is classic propagandist, I don't know what you would call it, gaslighting, you know. Don't argue the claim, just attack the source, discredit the source. And I remember the day after I put that video out, I got a cease and desist letter, not from the official World Financial Group, the company, but just from one of those Indian guys that was at that specific branch, one of their lawyers. It's probably his cousin or something. And, you know, it was oh, you should delete the video because whatever. So that was a real turning point in my life, because I was like, man, this might get me into some legal trouble, and I was a bit nervous about that. I had some people telling me oh, well, you know, you don't want to get in legal trouble. You should just delete it. But I was like, fuck it. I had nothing to, it's sort of just the same as it is now 6 years later. I have nothing to lose. It's you know, what was going to happen? You know, and spoiler alert, I did end up having legal trouble, not with that company, but with my work exposing MLM overall. It's just part of the game. I feel like if you want to change the world for the better, and you're making a stand and saying, hey, this thing that's legal should probably be illegal, you're gonna deal with this type of stuff. But that's for another video. So how did my former best friend respond to this video? Well, I have the screenshots here from our Facebook messages, and I'm not gonna share all of it because not all of it is relevant, and I don't wanna dox his information or anything like that. Let's just go through sort of the initial backlash, and hopefully this can be illuminating to some of you and help you not make the same mistakes I did when confronting this awkward and uncomfortable conversation. He says, your video is grossly misconstructed. I get it. You want to gain a following. But do you not have better ideas? I'm no longer associated with WFG, and still your statements made me cringe. I made tangible profits in my run with WFG and also added value to my finances as well as others. Plus, you lied to your viewers, saying you had never been to a WFG function. Clout chasing. There's a lot to unpack here already. First of all, as I said before, attack the source. Don't attack the argument. Don't attack any of the things I pointed out in the video, like how they are telling people this guy earned $500,000 billion and join WFG, get your blue jacket, and all your dreams will come true. Don't argue against any of that objectively nonsense stuff that I pointed out in my video. Just attack me. Oh, you want to build a following, clout chasing. It's like, okay. The next thing that really struck me is, and mind you, this is 2019. We were supposedly already cool by this point. Like, he had already not been in the company anymore and hit me up in 2017, like trying to chill. Like, I thought we were good. And here he is still defending it to the death, which is weird because if you're not in it anymore, like imagine you used to work for McDonald's and then somebody makes a video about how they don't like McDonald's or McDonald's is bad or they do some unethical, hypothetical thing, right? And somebody who used to work there 2 years ago is like, oh, I can't, you know what I mean? It's just weird. I made tangible profits in my run with WFG and added value. I mean, who talks like this? You know, it's like seeing these messages, I was like, oh, there it is. You know, he's still brainwashed. Plus, you lied to your viewers saying you had never been to a WFG function. I rewatched that video again recently for the first time in a while, and I never actually said that in the video, that I had never been to a WFG function before. I don't know what he's talking about with that. Apparently, he didn't watch the video. Okay, now let's see how I responded to that, and hopefully we can grow together. Yikes, dude. Sorry you feel that way. However, I think we can both agree the only reason you are against the video is because you are ashamed that you wasted so much time with them yourself, as well as most certainly turning many people off from you by shoving it at them the same way you did to me in almost a hypnotized state that I'd never seen from you before. Even going so far as to accuse me of being a bad friend when I tried to say that it wasn't a wise investment of your time. If you were making money with them, you'd still be with them. Not to mention, WFG wasn't the first time you fell victim to an MLM. You were in one before that too. Can't remember if it was Amway or Herbalife. It was Amway. At this point, I imagine it's easier for you to just double down on your alignment with MLMs than admit your mistakes. Now, I agree with everything I said in this statement, and I think everything I said in this statement is still correct and true to this day. However, the mistake I made is pointing it out. Like, you're never going to tell someone, oh, you're brainwashed. And they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I am brainwashed. You know, of course. Confronting it head on like this, I think in hindsight was objectively not the right move. It was not the right thing to do. Even if it was true, something I've learned from my conversation with Dr. Stephen Hassan, which you can find on my channel. He's an expert in cults and the tactics they use. Is he says if somebody's trying to get you to join a cult or, you know, a multi-level marketing scheme or whatever kind of cult, take a curious approach. Even if you know it's bullshit, take a curious approach where you hear them out and you try to work collaboratively to figure out if this is the best thing to do. And if it is, hey, I'll join you. I'll come do it with you, you know? And you can do sort of like an information exchange where you say, okay, I'll come to the meeting or I'll join the Zoom call or I'll watch the video that you want to show me. But let me share a video that I found with you. And maybe you send them like an Always Marco video or something like that. And you can have this exchange of information to figure out as a team what's true and what's not, who's bullshitting you and who's telling you the truth, who's trying to save you money and who's trying to take your money. And that way you hopefully avoid the criticisms that I get. Oh, you're just doing this for clout. Oh, you're a hater. You don't believe in me. You're just like everyone else. They told me you would say that. So he responds to this and says, dude, I made profit. What are you smoking? I ashamed of you. You're still the same arrogant kid with no filter. I left because it wasn't a career choice I wanted to make. I had told you that. I contacted you over this video because it pains me to hear you talking so much shit. Just so it's clear, I supported you through your rap shit when I fucked with you, but you couldn't show up to one more meeting for me. Wow, boy, oh boy, is there a lot to unpack here. Okay, again, if you made profit and you're no longer with this company anymore, why are you so offended, you know? I still believe what I said is true, where I made a video about this company and probably people from our hometown that we both mutually knew, like people from high school or whatever, who saw it and they were like, oh, this was the company that so-and-so tried to get me into a few years ago, and he was probably, you know, embarrassed by that or ashamed by the fact that I made this video. Or he thought that it was a judgment of me, a judgment from me about him as a person. Maybe I was calling him dumb by making this video. I don't know. I truly don't know. You're still the same arrogant kid with no filter. I didn't know he thought that. Just so it's clear, I supported you through your rap shit when I fucked with you, but you couldn't show up to one more meeting for me. This is where he's employing a logical fallacy called a false equivalence or false equivocation, one of the MLMers' favorite strategies to do. Oh, well, we're just like any other business. You start at the bottom and you're at the bottom of the pyramid. Walmart is a pyramid scheme. Trying to draw parallels between certain things to try to, once again, discredit the person talking bad about their company or exposing their company. An analogy I give to try to help people understand when they're being hit with a false equivalence is, I say, a horse is not a chair. Despite a chair having 4 legs and a horse having 4 legs, despite the fact that a chair could be brown or black or white, just like a horse, despite the fact that you could sit on a chair and sit on a horse and a chair are not the same thing. So when people try to hit you with the, oh, well, we're just like any other company, you know, the CEO is on top making all the money and then everybody else is below, okay, there may be some sort of hierarchical structure in a traditional company, McDonald's, Walmart, whatever they want to say. But Walmart, McDonald's, these are not like MLMs. They are not the same thing as an MLM. I address this in my response message to him where I say, of the 50K plus people who have seen this video and the 1,000 who have commented on it between Reddit and YouTube, not one person has echoed your statements about WFG being an honorable business or having made a profit. Now, either everyone else is wrong or you are. Again, I shouldn't have taken such a confrontational stance. Also, supporting my music, a passion of mine that requires no money from anyone else to support it, and the pyramid scheme you were a part of are so vastly different. The fact that I have to explain this to you shows me that you still haven't learned from the past. Does you supporting my music require you to drop $500 just to start? No. And in regards to the meeting, I was heartbroken when I sat in that meeting and realized what it was. Heartbroken that my friend who I admired so much and thought was so intelligent fell victim to one of these horrible schemes. And when you were in my face afterwards, pressuring me to sign up with this crazy look in your eyes, of course I wasn't going to come back to get scammed. I was like, this isn't the, let's call him John. This isn't the John I know. You acted so different when we were in that office, but up until that point, you were completely normal. You knew what you were doing, and you knew how to talk to me in order to lure me in. Then once we got in there, you turned into this robot who was pressuring me to give my personal information to a bunch of fucking strangers. If you can't see how that's wrong, I don't know what else I can say, my man. By the way, statistically, Mexican communities are the most preyed upon by these scam companies and have been on the receiving end of the most financial and emotional damage of any other demographic in the world. It's a shame to see you contribute to that. Once again, I think everything I said here was correct and accurate and true. My mistake is taking this confrontational me versus you approach. At this point, still, I didn't know much about MLMs. I didn't really know how deep the brainwashing went. And I was sort of at the end of my rope with this friend in particular because I was already annoyed from 4 years before when he had tried to recruit me and made me come to this meeting, you know? And then, like, trying to rekindle the friendship in 2017 while not even mentioning this or, like, you know, I didn't even get a fucking apology. And then now 2019, we're back to defending it again, and I'm still, you know, dealing with more nonsense from this same person about this same company. So, you know, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just giving you an explanation for why I responded this way. And with regards to the false equivalence of him saying, like, you couldn't show up to one more meeting for me, but I supported you through your rap shit. Bro, when I was in high school, of course, like most boys, we would freestyle, we would play beats, freestyle at lunch, and I did make music for a time after high school and even up until recently. Don't make me pick up that pen again, because I got bars for the MLM scammers. I might jump back into it if I end up hiring a team and I have an editor and YouTube doesn't take so much time away from me. Just wait. With regards to the thing I said about the Mexican community thing, if you've ever seen the movie Betting on Zero, this is a documentary about Herbalife, and there's a big focus on how Herbalife was targeting the Latin American, I don't know what the politically correct term is that people use nowadays, the Hispanic, the Spanish-speaking community with Herbalife. And I do think that is generally true. I'm not 100% sure if it's specifically Mexican or Spanish-speaking people who make up the majority of MLMs, but I know in MLMs like PHP, Patrick Bet-David's MLM, they brag on their website about how the majority of people in PHP are like a Hispanic woman. So I'm not 100% sure about the statistics, but I do know that it is mostly minority communities being specifically targeted to join MLMs. And if you've seen my videos before, you've seen this, where I go with a hidden camera into these meetings, and you see the demographics are mostly non-white people. You know, it's people who are generally in search of, you know, the American dream, people from more underprivileged communities, undereducated communities who maybe came from another country and just think that, oh, this is capitalism, because the slick-talking, charming confidence man at the front of the room with the fake Rolex and the fancy suit has spun these false equivalences to make them think that this is just normal capitalism. Once again, we're just like McDonald's, we're just like Walmart, we're just like Amazon, whatever. All right, so his response to that long message where I addressed a myriad of things is he says, facepalm, I guess you don't understand what I've been saying either. Nevertheless, buddy, your shit is sleazy. Good luck. I say, are you not going to address any of the points I brought up in my last message? Just calling me sleazy is kind of a cop-out. Once again, if you're losing the debate, just flip over the table and walk away angrily with your arms crossed. Works every time. He says, bro, I never asked you and was never going to insist that you give anyone money. Objectively a lie. Trust me. I'm saying, as your once best friend, stop trying to play the victim. I made money and helped other people with the contacts I had, including my family. This translates to, I victimized my family. And I hit you up to see if you would catch the vision. Catch the vision. If there was ever a dictionary of like red flag terms that specifically warned you not to trust someone, I have to imagine catch the vision is like on the first page of that dictionary. I hit you up to see if you would catch the vision and be down to make money together. After my contacts list and patience dried up, I went about my life and pursued other streams of income. Left WFG with money, knowledge, and the lowest costing life insurance I'll ever get for face value, thankfully, and my investments in check. I guess not many get my kind of experience with WFG because they're too pussy or stupid to be humble enough and follow through on simple shit. Here, while trying to defend WFG, he inadvertently brings up one of the strongest points I made in my video about them that show why it's not a good idea to join them or any other MLM, where he says, after my contact list and patience dried up. Well, doesn't that tell you everything? If your contacts list, meaning your warm market of friends and family that you know, who you initially hit up to buy insurance and tried to recruit them into the scheme, if that dries up and you've lost patience because after that you have no prospects, that kind of tells you that there isn't really a viable sales opportunity here. How successful do you think my friend, some 19-year-old kid, as he was at the time, is going to be going out there into the world and just like trying to organically find people to buy life insurance outside of his warm market of friends and family? This shows that the actual incentive is just selling to your own friends and family and trying to recruit your own friends and family and sell to them when you recruit them. And the idea that this is actually just about sales or just about selling life insurance to people who actually need it is demonstrably not true. I left with money, knowledge, and the lowest costing life insurance I'll ever get. I mean, even at the time he's sending me this message 6 years ago, we would have been 23. Do you need life insurance when you're 23 and you're unmarried and you have no dependents or children? I mean, maybe. And investments, I mean, my investments in check. What investments did you have when you're 23? I guess not many get my kind of experience with WFG because they're too pussy or stupid. This, once again, is the victim blaming that people in MLMs are usually taught on day one. Every MLM opportunity meeting I've ever been to, they always talk about how, you know, naysayers and haters are going to try to dissuade you from this, or they'll say they lost money, or they had a bad experience, or they know someone who didn't do well with this. Well, that's because they didn't follow the system. They didn't try. And they'll use another false equivalence. They'll say, oh, I have a friend who joined the gym, but 6 months later, he's still fat. Does that mean the gym doesn't work? Does that mean the gym is a scam? It's a false equivalence because in the gym, your success with fitness actually does depend on your effort and your technique in the gym, as well as your diet and your sleep and your stress levels. Like, there's many other variables. But when your success is dependent on a mathematically impossible endless chain, you can't say the same thing. So my friend here, rather than using a clever sounding false equivalence, just says, people who don't have my kind of experience are too pussy or stupid. Well, the cope is off the charts here, folks. And then he says, that statistic shit you just mentioned is petty, and I sense you trying to hurt my feelings. You instigated that Indian dude, Hartage, which is shady in my eyes. To be transparent, the Indian community within WFG does conduct business in their own manner, aka they scam different. But you are going as far as to label the whole organization as a scam of that dude's degree, which is wrong. You misrepresent because you don't understand and are skeptical. You're saying that the whole company is legit, okay, but maybe that guy wasn't so legit. So wouldn't it then be him, Hartage, who is misrepresenting, and I'm accurately representing his misrepresentation? That doesn't equate to I'm misrepresenting. And of course, in that initial video, I was just covering what I saw in those initial meetings. I didn't dive into the actual business structure, the compensation plan, the earnings disclosure, the higher level trainings that I covered in later videos about them that show, yes, actually, it is the whole company that is operating like this. The whole company is a scam, actually. You misrepresent because you don't understand and are skeptical. Ever heard of Ed Milet? Dude, this I remember distinctly. When he messaged me that, I was like, oh my God, this guy is actually more lost in the sauce than I ever imagined. Ever heard of Ed Milet? That's like saying, like, ever heard of Grant Cardone? Ever heard of Ty Lopez? It's like, oh. So you actually are fully, completely lost in the sauce, brainwashed. I have a video on my channel about Ed Milet going through and debunking the nonsense claims he was making in one of his early career training videos about WFG. Fun fact, both Ed Milet and Patrick Bet-David got their starts in WFG. Once again, I make the mistake of going confrontational. I say, sorry, bro, but you're absolutely delusional. If the money stops flowing once your contacts dry up, that is a telltale sign you are a part of a pyramid scheme. True. It's not your business if the rules and payout system are governed by the larger corporation. You were most definitely on the customer end of that business, whether you like to believe it or not. Bars. Damn, 2019 Marco was actually fucking tapped in. I'm not denying you got knowledge from it. But if you had to pay for the training courses, you were a customer. Any job where I've had to be trained, I got paid for the training. That's how legit jobs work. Exactly. Def wasn't trying to hurt feelings. I'm trying to open your eyes to the fact that you are contributing to a larger, much more damaging system. Catch the vision. Ed Milet. Do you hear yourself right now, man? Maybe you can be in part 2 of my video, giving people an insight into why you think WFG is so great. Let the unbiased public chime in on who they think is right. Maybe then you'll listen to reason. I mean, that's actually quite a reasonable offer. To this day, I invite people who want to defend any MLM. Yeah, join me on a live stream on my channel. No editing, no trickery. We'll do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. And we can debate, and you can tell me why I'm wrong and why I'm stupid and why I'm a hater, and we'll see what holds up. I find that, you know, you can go watch these debates with people on my channel. The one, funny enough, that I did with a guy from WFG specifically shows how insane some of these people are and how brainwashed they become. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I don't even have to say anything. Like, if you let somebody who is completely delusional talk long enough, they usually expose themselves to such a degree that you don't even have to actually, like, refute anything they're saying or, like, make a good point or think critically. It's actually remarkable. And then, once again, instead of addressing any of the things I actually say, he just says, right, you've always been the big dog. I forgot, your word reigns supreme over corporations on the top lists of the Better Business Bureau. This is called the appeal to authority fallacy. Label it as you want. I always knew it was a pyramid scheme, as you call it. Oh, wow. Same with Amway. I just never gave a fuck and stuck through to make money. Profit. I feel like you're not acquainted with that word. I knew what MLM meant before I even sat at my first meeting with either company, and the only L's I took were lessons, straight up. Damn. I always knew it was a pyramid scheme. Maybe I didn't know him as well as I thought. Maybe he actually was just a piece of shit to say that I always knew it was a pyramid scheme and I didn't care as long as I was gonna make money, as long as I made profit. If a man runs an honest construction contracting business or something of the like and drives sales, but eventually runs out of jobs, contacts, business, does he run a pyramid? Again, a false equivalence. You down to sit in an office and sell insurances your whole life? Me neither. Money talks, okay? Maybe you should make content with value instead of being a snake in the grass, troll, weirdo, call it what you want, middle finger, which is my whole point. Glad you're a YouTuber, but disappointed with your content. I'm not flying the WFG or MLM flag. You kind of are. Just flying the make money flag. Ah, it's a douchebag, you know? 2 words for you again, grossly misconstructed. Of course people praise and pay attention to content of your style. It's 2019, as they say. So don't take that as complete validation of your useless endeavors. I guess my mistake in all of this is having any expectation of you ever. I've said my piece, I'm done, you're always right anyway. Well, at least he said one true statement at the end there. I am always right. Fly the make money flag. It's truly insane. Make content with value. I don't know, I personally think that making content that has been viewed by millions of people and thus helping to save millions of people tens or hundreds or billions of dollars collectively that would have otherwise been scammed out of their pockets by them joining an MLM. I think that has some value. I don't know. And then I say, well, your high expectations of me turned out to be correct because the vid is blowing up, LOL. Glad you admitted it was a pyramid scheme, bro. Hope you're cool with that. WFG has fucked up way more people's lives than I could ever hope to compare to. And last night I made $200 in 2 hours sitting on my ass talking to fans on live stream. Must be doing something right. He says, yep, totally, good luck. I said, you too, man. Now, I will admit, I was being petty at the end there, talking about me making money and the video blowing up. However, this wasn't just to be baselessly petty and like rub it in his face or like meet his douchebaggery with douchebaggery. But in his previous message, he's talking about, I'm not flying the WFG or MLM flag, only the make money flag. Well, you want to talk about making money? I'm making money. That's what you said is the most important thing, right? Doesn't matter if it's a pyramid scheme, as long as I'm making money, profit, right? So doesn't matter if I'm making content that doesn't provide value and I'm a snake, weirdo, troll, as long as I'm making money, right? These people can't even see their own hypocrisy, you know? It's like they just go into a cognitive dissonance, rage spiral, attack, deflect, you know? What's the thing, Darvo? Deny, attack, reverse victim offender. Bars. You know, even that, you know, in one of his earlier messages, he talks about stop playing the victim or something like that. He accuses me of trying to play victim. I'm not trying to play victim. I'm trying to stop WFG from victimizing others. And that was actually the true end of the friendship. We haven't spoken since. I don't know where he's at or what he's doing or what his life looks like today. He's probably a multi-billionaire, you know, he's flying that make money flag, right? So it's a real shame, but you know, me losing my high school best friend and then going on this journey to help others, you know, they say everything happens for a reason. In the grand scheme, I really can't be too mad about that because I'm so proud of doing something that's been able to help so many. And if it weren't for him inviting me to that first meeting and trying to recruit me and, you know, saying all this stuff to me, this would have never happened. I would have never been doing this work, you know? And other people have had it so much worse than me. I lost my friend because I wouldn't join, but I didn't actually join and lose money and lose my friends and lose my relationship and, you know, have these long-term mental health effects and have the shame and alienate everyone who I was harassing on Facebook. And, you know, so many people have had all those things happen to them. So ultimately, I'm grateful for the experience. Hopefully this can be helpful to somebody or at the least entertaining if it isn't personally helpful. But that's just a glimpse of how MLM destroys the fabric of society. It destroys relationships. It scams people out of their money. It destroys friendships. It's a poison in our society. And, you know, this is my mission that I've dedicated my life to, is that sometime in my lifetime, there will be some official stance from government, whether it's the US or Canada or wherever I can make a difference, where they say, yeah, you know what? The evidence is overwhelming. MLMs and pyramid schemes are one and the same. MLM is just a fancy double-speak euphemism for an illegal pyramid scheme, which in itself is just a Ponzi scheme with extra steps. I have faith we'll get there. So yeah, thanks for being here. If you want to support me, I've got Patreon. You can join as a channel member, get access to the custom channel emojis to use in the live stream chats, get access to all the new content early, including this video. All the people who saw this video got to see it early on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member. So, you know, sweetening the deal. I'm scamming my audience, you know. But yeah, thank you for being here and watching regardless. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't join an MLM.